boys and girls, we've been talking about historians and how they piece together the past. They put that puzzle together using documents and using artifacts. They also can use oral histories. And today we're going to share some oral history. Today's lesson was about cars in the past to present. And so we're going to use an oral history from my father, Anthony Trifoletti, today, who has lots of experience with cars. And I'm remembering, Dad, a story that you told about your grandmother, my great-grandmother. She lived for quite a long time, and tell the story of her experience looking at transportation from the past to her present.
Well, she was actually born in 1865, just at the end of the Civil War, and there were no cars. They got around on horse and buggy, or a bicycle. So she actually got to see the first cars come out on the road. She got to see the Model T, the Model A, when they first came out. There were no roads. There were just dirt paths that horses rode on. So there was no highway system. The cars were pretty basic compared to cars today. They just had big high wheels so that they could run in ruts in the road. They did not have any cement to drive on, so the tires were hard. The cars were rough riding, but they showed one thing, and that was that an automobile could take you from point A to point B much more easily than horseback.
Now, what was her reaction when you were of age to drive and you got your first car? Tell us about your first car and her reaction to seeing you in an automobile.
Well, she really didn't understand cars that well. They called cars machines because they thought they were machines. They didn't realize that they would become known as automobiles. They just figured it was like any other machine that someone invented, so they called them machines. And I can roughly tell you a little bit about cars from, say, 1955 till the present day. Okay, those cars were big and heavy. They knew nothing about seat belts. No one had seat belts in the vehicle. They were heavy, thick cars. And what happened? They started putting bigger motors in them to go faster. And then the highway system came along, and they built cement highways across the country, back and forth. Cars could go faster. People could travel further. In my grandmother's day, going 30 miles from one city to another was a day trip. Now, people commonly drive that far to work.
Yeah, I drive that every day to Yates Mill and back is about roughly 30 minutes. So yeah, I drive that to work there and back every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, as the cars got better, people were able to go further and faster. And in the 50s and 60s, they put powerful motors in cars so they could go really fast. They didn't realize how dangerous it was until accidents started killing people. And then came along the safety aspect. They started putting first lap belts in cars so people wouldn't go flying out of them when they got in a wreck.
So that's why it's so important, boys and girls, to make sure that you wear your seatbelts when you're in a vehicle. It's the law.
Now they have shoulder harnesses to help hold you in a car and keep you tight. Cars have gotten much more safer. They still go very fast. The roads are much better. The drivers are much better. There was no driver education back then like there is today. Now people are taught to drive a car. They must get a driver's license to drive a car. But you have to remember, the first cars, no one didn't need a driver's license. Anyone could drive it at any time if they had the money to buy it. And that was dangerous.
Now, you worked in the audio industry for quite some time for Chrysler, and you retired working there. Can you tell us about the changes that you saw in automobiles, maybe from the time you started or you got your first car or started working in the auto industry until you retired?
Yeah, cars in the 60s and 70s, cars were real big, but gas was real cheap. When I first would buy gas for my car, it was 25 cents a gallon. It's now $3.50 a gallon. And because of that, what happened was cars started getting smaller. The power that they have, they decreased it and made it less. They didn't need to go so fast. They only needed to go steady. And so now I'm seeing it even taking a new form, and people don't want to pay for that high-priced gas. You're going to be seeing electric cars. And I'm going to tell you right now that when you kids grow up, your cars are probably going to use any gasoline. They're going to be electric.
Ooh, so we have a prediction for the future from someone who worked in the auto industry. Are there any last words that you'd like to share with the boys and girls, since we're kind of doing oral history and we just learned a lot? We pieced together from the time of the 1800s until now and kind of learned some information that we didn't know about cars. Is there any last words you'd like to share?
Yeah. The thing that I talked to you about that helped make cars hugely safe was seatbelts. But that's not the only thing that can make them safe. The driver can make them safe. And I want to just hope that you learn a lesson and never use your phone when you're in the car. Do not text. Do not talk on the phone. Pay attention to where you're going and what you're doing, and you will have a safe, successful life driving a vehicle.
All right, there you have it.
Wait, actually, I have a bonus question. Okay, can you tell the kids about if there was a car that made a big advancement?
Oh, good question, Kennedy.
Well, yes, and that would be GPS. Cars now, people used to just wonder where they were going and try and find it. People would get lost. Nowadays, you don't get lost in a car anymore. They have GPS tell you right where you are and how to get where you're going. So technology has jumped in and helped the driver perform better.
Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. And there you have it, boys and girls. There is an oral history right here from my family, and I appreciate you listening.